Greetings. Welcome to ITR Live. I'm your host, Chris Hagenow, and we are back here in the Hendrickson Library at the Center for the Preservation of Western Civilization at ITR World Headquarters in Central Iowa. John Hendrickson and myself ready to thrill and excite you on the gold standard in Iowa conservative entertainment. John was so deep into the collection over here behind him that he almost was late for the intro.
Yes,
I turn around as I'm rolling through the whole shtick, and he's pulling books off the shelf. The stack is tall today. He's got a Minnesota coffee mug full of coffee. Yeah. You've set the bar high today for what the folks should expect out of you.
Yeah, and this is This is not a fraudulent mug either.
Okay.
So,
well, that wasn't. That's not somehow the sale of that wasn't a money laundering scheme to send dollars back to Somalia. I really want to just stay on that story, but it's not Iowa. I mean, it's instructive, but man, it's infuriating, John.
It is, yeah.
So you need to get your native state whipped into shape.
Yeah,
because it's bad.
Well, I read this morning as we were talking in pre-production that there's a call for Jesse Ventura, Jesse the Mind, or Jesse the Body to come back, and
it's all been downhill since Predator.
Yeah,
I mean, like, whatever. If you want folks up there want to dream, but oh boy. Anyway, so this is an episode, John, that we do once a year, and this kind of preview where we're going today, but kind of recapping what's been said in the opening week of session. We're recording this on Thursday, wrapping up the first week of the legislative session. Take a look at some of the speeches and some of the new proposals and what to expect out of this year. Some of this we've talked about, but now that we've actually, kick things off, we can speak to a little bit more specificity. So let's talk trivia, John, because my understanding is that you're ready to let the folks down.
Yes, I apologize. I do not have a question.
No trivia.
This has been a strange week because I'm not used to a opening first week of the legislature being this busy.
Yeah, we'll keep you on your toes.
Yes, yeah. But our question last week, we had two winners. Was asking for the Iowa senator who voted to acquit President Andrew Johnson during his impeachment trial during Reconstruction.
And the answer?
And I'm drawing a blank.
This is great, John. I am loving this.
Yes, yeah. Do you remember who it was?
No.
I'm
it's not my trivia question, John.
Yeah.
Well,
Our winner was David Kerr.
Okay, good. At least we got that.
Who David, a longtime listener.
You're going to hear from David again here on this.
I want to apologize, David, for
your own
getting,
trivia question. You can't even come up with the answer.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm just gonna. I can't let go of that.
I'm absent-minded. I think he
wasn't Grimes, was it?
Yes, James Grimes.
Okay,
thank
good.
you.
All right.
Yeah, James Grimes, Senator James Grimes, and the other one was Harlan, who voted to impeach, and James Grimes voted to acquit.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna blame it on reading these 200-page bills.
Yeah. I mean, let's be fair to John. He is, when we talk about reading the bills, John reads the bills. So you drop a 100-page tax bill on John Hendrickson, he's got his hands full.
Yes. Yeah.
So really actually been doing real tax work here over here. At ITR HQ. So anyway, and the folks appreciate that, and we're going to be able to speak to some of these things, maybe even yet today. But okay, so the legislative session kicks off, and if you've watched any news, you've seen this. The typical pomp and circumstance, opening day speeches, which is kind of interesting to nerds like us. I know that it's mostly a formality. Most of the things they say are things they've already been said. Not even everything they say they really mean. All the happy talk about working together and all that lasts about, a half hour or so usually. And then they're at each other's throats again. But it's all fine, whatever. But one thing that I think you can glean from that is that the topics that are addressed are important to those leaders that mention them.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So because they're trying to frame up where they want to go. And front and center, I believe in all of these, at least on the Republican side, was the issue of property taxes. Interestingly, on the Democrat side, they're very latched on to the idea of affordability, cost of living. And we've touched on this before, John, but that is a thing that I think is popping up in polling data and other anecdotal things is people are concerned about what it costs to live their lives. Now, obviously, the left of center party and the right of center party are going to have different perspectives on what that is, and probably even the reasons why that is.
Yeah.
And we dive into that a little bit here today too, but it is interesting to see the way they frame up the issues of the day. And obviously the party in power has a different perspective just from the simple fact that they're in power. But any opening thoughts on any of that? Or it seemed pretty straightforward to me for an opening week, except for maybe the velocity of some of the legislation.
Yeah, it's a lot of legislation. I would just say, there was a lot of mention on property tax. I would just highlight one thing from Speaker Grassley's opening.
Yes, we're going to get there, so let's just start right there.
And I just want to highlight, which I was really glad he did, is he went to the defense on conservative budgeting, and it came towards the end of his remarks, and so I really appreciated what he had to say for that.
He did, and I appreciated that too. And he even sort of made it fun that as a former appropriations chair, he loves the budget stuff, and he does. I can tell you just from having served as Speaker Grassley, he cares a lot about the budget, and that's a very good thing. I have the text in front of me, and maybe you do too, but what I sort of was drawn to is obviously the history on taxes, but the government was collecting too much of your money, way more than we needed. The state was collecting so much money that not only were our reserve funds full, not only was the budget ending balance over $2 billion, but also our taxpayer relief fund had reached over $4 billion. And he goes on to talk more about how this was all planned, which we've tried to make the case for as well, that the dip in revenue, obviously the Democrats have latched onto that. There's a budget deficit and all that. But, the line here, which I think they tried to lean on, and I'll let you take it from there. But so Iowans ignore the fear-mongering and enjoy the extra cash in your wallet. There's a lot else there, but I want to give you a chance. You brought it up to speak to that, and then I got a couple other thoughts on that.
Well, the fear-mongering obviously goes to what you said, is that this has been an issue that certainly Rob Sand has been harping on for almost, all of last year and into this year now, saying that, Iowa's basically a failed state because of failed budget policies and tax cuts for the rich, and it's certainly not true.
But besides the gigantic budget hole, civil unrest, bordering on civil war, and billions of dollars worth of fraud on the blue state to the north. But Iowa's the failed state?
Yeah.
Am I getting that right?
That's right.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Just make sure I'm thinking clear about this.
And basically what he's saying is you look at what they did, and they planned for this, and what a lot of people don't understand is they forget the purpose of the taxpayer relief fund,
right? Which
was to cushion the budget for when the flat tax was phased in, which is what is happening with our current situation. Now it's a little more stressed because of the current economy and the economic uncertainty, and so that was unfortunate that happened. But Iowans are being allowed to keep more of their money, and they're going to start seeing that when people start doing their taxes, and some people are probably doing that as we speak.
Well, that's right, and so we appreciate that reminder on how much. The basic thing is Iowa was collecting far more money than it needed to operate. We've right-sized the budget, and we're phasing it in.
Well, and you and I were talking this morning about how California and the state of Washington are looking at instituting these massive wealth taxes because they're trying to dig themselves out of their tax and spend policies. Right. I mean, they just keep spending themselves into oblivion.
Yeah, and I think the point that I've thought about is, we talk a lot on tax policy as creating a favorable environment for growth to draw in people and businesses from out of state and for us to grow. And we look sometimes at migration data on some of that, but sometimes we lose sight of the fact of how much people want to flee the high tax states.
Yes, yeah.
You've seen this in this migration from, say California to Arizona and Texas, and you've seen New Yorkers fleeing to Florida. I mean, there's classic examples around the country of people moving just because of their wallets, and we're in a position to be able to reap the reward of some of that here in Iowa as well. I want to keep moving around the speeches a little bit, John. The governor, obviously the speaker, the majority leaders, minority leaders, they do that on the opening day, and the second day is Governor Reynolds' speech. But she really spent a lot of time on the issue of taxes. She also went back to recap the work that we had done on income taxes and on corporate taxes as well, and retirement income, and sort of hitting the greatest hits, which is always fun to talk about.
Yes, yeah.
But she moves on. She makes I think the great line here is, I'm proud to say we've cut taxes more than any other state in the country. I think it's possible. You're the historian. You're the policy guy. We've cut taxes more in Iowa than any other state in the country ever.
I think so. Yeah.
So it really is a
case for that. Yeah.
Tremendous case. But moving on to property taxes, and what she made a comment here, and we spent some time talking about this, John, because it echoes so much of what we've tried to say here at ITR and on the podcast about spending being the problem. And here's what the governor had to say. So this year, we need to go after the real driver of the problem, spending. Spending is what drives taxes, always has, always will. And the most reliable way to protect taxpayers is to limit the growth of government itself. That's it. That's what we have to see. And I think that she sort of alludes to it, but that's what allowed us to do the state level income tax cuts, is limiting the growth of government, holding the line on the budget so that you're in a position to be able to let the taxpayers win. And I think that's the vision that she's trying to cast here on the property tax debate, which leads, I think, into her 2% proposal. We'll talk about that a little bit. But also, that's been, I think the other players are also in this, House Republicans, Senate Republicans, and even House Democrats have all talked about at least some sort of limitation on the growth of local government budgets. Is that a good way to frame that, or this is where you get to jump in and tell me I'm wrong?
No, you're not wrong, and I think it's actually interesting that that you saw Representative Jacoby come out with a 4% property tax cap, and when the House Democrats introduced their plan. So I mean, this is and we'll talk more about that probably when we get to the details. But this is the governor is absolutely right when she said that spending drives taxation. And I hear all the time, and I heard this last night on the news again, listening to stories about the governor's property tax reform proposal, and everyone keeps saying property taxes are complicated, and I realize that they are complicated because the system is complicated, but I don't think the solution has to be complicated. And I think you can apply the same solution regardless of the tax, because, as the governor said, spending drives taxation, and how we got to our flat tax, and look at how these other states, and even look at our federal government, how we're in trouble fiscally, in terms of our budget problems. It's a spending problem. Yeah, it's
at every level of government.
Yes,
it's a spending problem.
And so if you want lower taxes, if you want, you have to start with controlling your spending. You have to rein in your budgets, and this is what the governor's saying. And she said this even going into the session when she was traveling the state, holding her town halls, that we're going to have to start looking at ways to reform local government, and both local government, even Iowans, are going to have to think differently about government, and maybe even demand less from government.
Well, I want to get to that philosophical point after we get through the speeches of what do we want government to do. And I think there's an undercurrent of all of that in this debate from everyone. But that's exactly right. One other, I want to look just briefly at new Senate Majority Leader Mike Clemish and his comments, again speaking about property taxes. They're bringing the line that they have leaned on here, which is actually kind of clever. They want to strip the old broken system down to its chassis and rebuild it. and bringing relief to Iowans facing rising costs and so on and so forth. The goal, and I've talked with Senator Dawson about this, and it's been a goal for a long time, is to rebuild the system. And that is attractive in the face of complexity. And I think that's been an idea that's been kicked around, not just from Senate Republicans over the years, is that it's one of the things that's difficult to understand. It's difficult to understand where your tax dollars go, how they're calculated. I mean, we've seen this specifically when folks get so animated about their assessments going up. And it's like, well, that's part of the solution, but the issue is the local government spending. Mm-hmm. But because the thing is complicated, folks get a little bit distracted off of that. So anyway, I think there is certainly there's some allure to this idea of rebuilding the system, but it does make it difficult to do, and it's a lot. And it's, we can put some smart people around a table and figure it out, but you still have to build the coalition of legislators and even Iowans to get there, and that's hard. So we've seen this idea that across the board, at least Republican leaders really want to work on property taxes and are committed to restraining government. So there's another, and we think that's great, and the 2% number has been widely talked about, and a version of that 2% restriction on government is included in I believe all three bills. We haven't seen the text of the House Republicans bill, but it's coming. That's terrific. There is a component here that we don't love as much, and we've got to work through the numbers on, and that's the idea of the senior freeze, John. And I don't want to necessarily, because I'm so enthused about the direction and the momentum on all this, I don't want this to be a downer, but I do have to, is that we've never been real crazy about the idea of a senior freeze or a senior exemption, because that creates two classes of taxpayers and picks winners and losers inside the tax code. But I mean, what's your perspective quickly on those without going in, you know what I mean? Like, do you get the sense that this has been widely adopted, or just a discussion point? Are you expecting to see this in the final version of the bill? Where do we go from here?
Yeah, I think there will be. I agree with you in terms of if we were looking at what is good principles of tax policy, you do not want to put different taxpayers against each other, mm-hmm. and so it that shifts the burden to others, and not just other taxpayers, but to you're shifting it to small business owners and so forth. But anyways, I would predict that there will be some form of this, maybe.
I think so,
but I don't know if it would be just kind of as because there is differences between what the governor proposes and what is in the Senate bill right now, and versus what I'm not sure what will be in the House bill yet.
There's a lot, much like everything in the property tax debate. It gets really complicated really quick. Mm-hmm. I mean, 2% is easy to understand, but there's a lot of definitional issues that are going to have to get fleshed out inside of this senior business. Who actually qualifies?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to turn 60 or 65 long before my wife. Do we get half of it? Do we get all of it? Is it first one to hit the benchmark? So that's one. Can I sell my house to my dad and let him get the exemption and I'll pay him back? Is it a house of a certain dollar amount, or is it unlimited where we get the freeze? And then how does that work with changing assessed values as we go up the ladder? If you do pin it to a certain dollar amount, is it going to be the first bit of assessed value at that dollar amount, or only homes on it? There's just a lot of questions that we're going to have to work through if we want to do this, because we need to do it right. And there'll be a lot of work on that. And that's one of the things that our capital team is going to do, is try to have those conversations and make sure that wherever we land, that we end up with good tax policy.
Yes,
in the end. So anyway, I don't want to belabor it too much. It's just we have talked about that in the past. These do seem to be concepts that are present in the bills so far, but it is the first week of session. We got a long ways to go. Okay. I wanted, because you brought it up, John, and you actually pointed this article out to me the first time. We've got this. Do you have anything else on the proposals? Before we move on, I want to make sure that I haven't missed something. Is there anything in these? Okay, here's the question, John. So obviously we like 2%. We talked about the senior. What else is in either the governor's bill or any of the others that like, wow, I wasn't expecting that, or that's terrific, that might have been lost in the messaging war?
Yeah.
Because I think it's easy to miss things that really are consequential because they don't grab that headline on the front page of the paper.
Yeah. I think a couple things I'll just look at the governor's first because that's what I have first on my notes here. But I think one is a good thing in the governor's bill, and there's a lot of good things in this bill, but limiting TIF, I think that's a good reform.
Yes.
She has limiting that for putting some more guidelines on that and limiting TIF projects for I believe it's a 20-year limit.
And if you're not familiar, TIF is a bonding scheme where you can borrow against local governments can borrow against future tax revenue in order to fund projects today. And it gets misused. It can be a useful tool, but often gets misused. So thus the excitement about the governor's proposal.
Yes, yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, she put some real limitation on the ability of locals to just hand out checks to developers for private projects.
Yes,
It needs to be for government, or it needs to be public purposes.
Yes,
Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, I believe that. Yes.
So you want to TIF a project to create the structure under which development can happen. That might be okay, but doing it just so you can hand out a check to a real estate developer so they can pad their bottom line on the project is not good.
Yes,
correct?
Yeah. It goes back to that original objective of what TIF was supposed to be for the blighted. And
good. Well, we're definitely going to be tracking that.
Yeah. I think a unique idea was something I wasn't expecting was the first time home accounts that they are proposing are modeled after the 529 plans.
Oh, I did see. Yep.
I think that's a unique idea. Also, the encouragement of of creating a fund to encourage local governments to look at consolidation and efficiency measures. I think that's a good thing. Looking at eliminating election mandates for county treasurer and auditor and recorder. Also, and you and I have been talking about this, and I think this is something you've been talking about for a long time, and that is, reforming SAVE, secure and advance vision for education. That's the penny, and dedicating more. And the governor's proposing to eventually have 30% of that going by 2030, going to property tax relief. And so I think that's a good idea.
I think that's a a tremendous piece. When I found out that was going to be in the bill, I my eyes lit up. That's great. When we extended SAVE, and I think this was in 18 or 19?
I think so, yeah.
We held back a little bit more of that penny to go into property tax relief through the school funding formula. And there was a debate at the time over how much should go into that. I wanted more than we ended up with. That's fine. You don't win everything. And so here we are now coming back, and here's just a couple things to keep in mind. SAVE was originally created to replace aging old schools around the state of Iowa, which was absolutely true. They were falling apart. So we did that. Then, as government always does, gets hooked on the money. They needed to come back so they continue doing it so that they can build football fields and student commons and all the fancy stuff that we like. And there's some good stuff in there. But that SAVE penny, sales tax revenue, has increased in the state of Iowa by much more than we even anticipated it would when SAVE was passed. So the schools are reaping the benefit of even more revenue off of that SAVE penny than they thought they would when we passed the extension in 2018 or 19. And it probably should have been higher, like 30% to begin with, because those dollars should be redirected into school funding or property tax relief. And so this is a very meaningful piece that I have a personal interest in chasing down and hoping to see if we can be that part of a final bill. I'm sure the school boards will be opposed to that. There are probably districts that have already bonded themselves out, leveraged out beyond that they couldn't even do the 30%. So what happens with that is the devil's always in the details.
That's right.
They sound great, but it'll be a difficult one. But we'll watch that. Okay. So overall, there's been. You brought this up just a minute ago, John. What are the things that we want government to do? And we have talked over the past, years, but, what are those core functions of government that need to happen? Obviously, police and fire, roads, justice system, those basic things that people count on. And so we always get to the argument, anytime we talk about property tax savings, John, and you and I have talked about this a lot, where we immediately, anytime we threaten to take a nickel away from local governments, that is going to ultimately lead in a less safe community. Mm-hmm. That we will have fewer police on the streets. We will have to close down the fire department or whatever it is, immediately to the scare tactic of the most essential functions of government, instead of talking about the less essential or the optional functions of government. Did I frame that up fairly? Because I'm going to get to this Des Moines Register editorial eventually, because that's my goal here. Yeah. But am I setting the stage for this the right way? You tease this out.
No, I absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So usually it's from either a city or a county that makes this case right away. The opening salvo in the "we're going to destroy our communities" line comes from our friends at the Des Moines Register. Editorial interview talking about property tax debate should center on services. I guess, I don't know. Maybe their own headline doesn't read right. Not just savings. Hanging on, here's the subtext, which gets right to the heart of the matter. Hanging on to a few $100s, which I wouldn't be quite so dismissive about a few $100, Des Moines Register editorial board. That's a lot of money to a lot of Iowans. Hanging on to a few $100s won't mean much to Iowans if it also means they're less safe or more susceptible to blowing a tire in a pothole. They didn't bring the money line up here to the front because what they read at the bottom end, it's all the stuff. This article writes itself. Yep. If you've been paying attention to this debate, John. So at the end of they brought it from the end. If they're less safe or more susceptible to blowing a tire in a pothole in the final line or seeing sewage back up in their basements. So watch out, Iowa. If you vote get this right, because what we're talking about, slowing down the growth in property taxes, not cutting it. So we're not even talking about hanging on to a few $100. We're saying they can only grow by a few $100 less than they otherwise would have grown. Right?
That's right.
I just make sure so they're factually wrong.
Yeah.
That if we slow down the growth, I'm going to have sewage in my basement. So, thank you, Des Moines Register, on January 14th, Wednesday, day 3 of session, for leading the charge on the property tax debate for Iowa. So, legislators, you are now on notice that if you slow down the growth in property taxes 1 iota, your community will be less safe, your house will catch on fire, and if you're lucky, you'll have sewage in the basement. What do you have to say about that, John?
Well, I was going to go to Fleet Farm and get a plunger.
Good.
Yeah.
You know what? You have to take care of yourself, John.
Yeah.
Government's not going to be there for you.
Yeah. But you're absolutely right. I thought you set the stage up well for that, because this is I heard this argument on the news last night on the television news. That 2% is going to be a devastating budget cuts to local governments,
even though most of them are probably around that anyway right now.
Yeah, and so this is a scare tactic to and I go back to when the legislature was getting ready to pass a very limited property tax reform bill in 2019, and they even went to the extreme to say it was going to interfere with IPERs in an effort. Of course. I mean, and so this is what's going to happen, and it's only going to probably pick up steam. Yeah. And this was, I just thought, reading that editorial, I thought was just, potholes and sewers backing up. I mean, it's just.
And here's the thing. It's been said over and over. We did this, was it 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah.
There was the glitch in the multi-residential tax rate, and so they had to fix that. And immediately we had cities, especially here in the metro, saying we're going to take police off the street. If we did, they didn't.
No.
They passed the bill as is, and nobody took a single policeman off the road.
Yeah.
They didn't close the fire department. Everybody stayed safe.
Yeah. What you said was key. It's not even a cut. It's slowing the growth. Yeah. And I guess that's only in government where if you slow the growth of spending, that it's a cut.
Hey, look, if we want to move the conversation on to cutting this stuff, I'm all in. We're trying to come up with something modest.
Yes. Yeah.
That this legislature can act on this year.
Yeah.
I mean, if we want to move on to the cuts, I'll gladly talk about it. And if we want to really dig into local government budgets, we can do that.
Yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't stop handing out checks to people for free through universal basic income. We had to take that to the legislature.
That's right.
I don't remember anybody talking about sewage embasements at the time.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we stop giving it away to every nonprofit around town.
Yeah.
Maybe we could look around for some dollars there. Maybe we don't need to build cathedral sports events.
Yeah.
Not every community in this state needs an aquatic center.
Yeah.
Don't tell me there aren't places to save money outside of the critical core functions of government. It is offensive that becomes the principal argument against limiting the growth in property taxes. And what makes it even more offensive is that is a growth rate that is still on par with what Iowans have to deal with. What they are arguing for, I mean, let's get right down to it, and our leaders spoke to this in their speeches. What this gets right down to is they want to be able to grow their budgets faster than Iowans are growing their own. They want to be able to spend more at a faster rate than Iowans can spend in their own personal budgets.
That's right.
They want to sign up for HBO and Netflix while you have to cut back your cell phone plan. It's time to take away the credit cards. This gets me a little fired up.
No, I'm just thinking.
Sewage, John. Yeah. Sewage in your basement. You shouldn't laugh about this. All right. I'm done. I got nothing else.
No, I
Good thing I won't be able to get home since I popped my tire in the pothole on the way home. So I won't be have to go home and worry about the plunger.
We talked about buying stock in Roto-Rooter yesterday.
Right, I'm buying a Roto-Rooter franchise. That's really it. They're on to me. Yeah. Here's the corruption. This whole thing is part of my secret plan to make money off of my new Roto-Rooter franchise. All right. Okay. John, I'm done. You got anything else?
No, the other thing going back to the whole spending thing is the I just look at some of these states that we talked about at the beginning of the program here and look at what's going on in Minnesota, California, Washington, Rhode Island. There was an editorial, I believe, in today's Wall Street Journal about I think it was Rhode Island looking at another tax increase, and you cannot tax and spend your way to prosperity. And I don't care if it's a city, a county, a school, a state, or the federal government. It just does not work that way. And people probably say, well, that's too simple thinking, but it doesn't work. I mean, those states prove it, and there's communities out there, there's cities that are in trouble. They're in financial trouble. Their budgets are in trouble because they're trying to tax and spend their way. And they want to talk about economic growth in Iowa. And I was at some of these property tax meetings, and you have all these people with their hands out, saying, well, we need this tax credit program, and we need this and this, and we need all these subsidies. But you know what? What we need is property tax relief. That's what's going to kind of be a shot in the arm for businesses and for people. That's going to make Iowa more attractive. I mean,
I know you've been to those meetings. We've hosted our own meetings around the state, and we have small business owners that talk about their property tax burden being an impediment to their business longevity, growth, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's real. That matters.
Yes.
And here's full circle on this, John. These taxing their way to prosperity states, what's driving that is not that they want to tax. I suspect most of them would rather not have to raise taxes on their constituents. What's driving it is the insatiable appetite for spending.
That's right, yeah.
And that happens all over the place.
Yeah.
And the problem is, in these deep blue states, they can't check it. They can't help themselves. They spend too much. It's what we've seen in Minnesota.
Yep.
And it's not even going towards services in Minnesota. It's just going straight back out to the Minneapolis St. Paul Airport into suitcases and off to Somalia.
I shouldn't laugh because it's serious.
It's sad.
Yeah, yeah.
But what's driving that is the spending.
Yeah.
And they couldn't control spending, and now here they are, predictably needing to raise taxes.
Yeah.
Wealth tax in Washington and Oregon. Mm-hmm. If you can't stop that, you get the tax increase.
That's right.
And so that is exactly what we're talking about here, that Governor Reynolds framed up so perfectly, is that spending is underneath this entire issue. If you want to save money on your property taxes, you have to control spending.
Yeah. Yeah. And Armageddon is not going to happen.
No.
You know, you're not going to have sewage in your basement, or
I love it. This might be the best episode we've ever had.
You're not going to have to go to your favorite car repair shop and get new tires.
Yeah, it's all right, John. Well, anyway, folks, it's week one. We're already having fun.
Yeah.
This whole conversation, I guess maybe I would close with this. There is a long way to go. I don't think any of these bills that have been released are the final version of any bill that lands back on the governor's desk. And so stay involved. You know, for those of you out there, stay connected with your legislators. Tell them you care about this issue. Just cheer them on. That you don't want the sewage. Yeah, whatever. John, I'm trying to wrap up an episode here.
I'm thinking, get your shop vacs ready.
Yeah, get the shop vacs ready. But anyway, stay involved. And we're going to be there. We're at the Capitol every day. And trying to be part of this conversation. We're encouraged, and I truly mean this, encouraged by what we've seen so far out of this legislature. I think there is a real commitment to getting a really good bill done this year, and that has me excited.
Could I one serious question before we adjourn? From my experience, and I haven't been at this as long as you have, but this week, I mean, not just we have two major tax bills. And you have and there's a bunch of other major legislation that came out this week that we didn't talk about. Is this unprecedented? I mean,
maybe I don't know about
early?
Unprecedented. I don't think, for my own personal experience with the legislature, I don't think anything will ever top 2017 when we came back in after we won the trifecta. I don't know that was all week one of dropping bills and everything. But we hit the ground running, and I think it took maybe 2 or 3 weeks to actually get the machinery going.
Yeah.
But the internal work was significant that year. But to your question and outward, we didn't even talk about the House Judiciary Committee is already on day 3. Was it yesterday too? I can't remember. Already had their eminent domain bill for the carbon capture pipeline off the House floor, or no. Yeah. Got it out of committee on the way to the House floor. I have every reason to believe that they'll move that next week. There's rules on how quickly you can bring a bill for debate.
There was several significant higher ed reform bills and
there's a lot out there.
Yeah.
And that's great.
Yep.
We've talked about that. They've been in a trifecta for a while. Have they lost some of the momentum on the big things? And I think that's absolutely not true. I think there are still a lot of legislators that really want to reform government, reform the way we do these things to try and make it better.
Selfishly, I know it's not an issue that but personally for me, there were some good civic education bills.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
we're definitely going to ask you to table that for a future episode.
Yeah.
But keep that in mind. So anyway, be encouraged. Good days are ahead with this legislature. There's going to be a lot of twists and turns and ups and downs and all of that, but it's going to be good. So, John, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, listeners. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to share with your friends. And with that, we will see you next time on ITR Live.